In this video, I will fulfill my promise and I will answer some of the questions posted to me by my audience. Now, you guys were really generous with the questions and you really asked a lot of questions, and I cannot answer all of them, but I will answer some of them, which I can answer right now. I need to really, how I can say, work more with Molech before I answer all of the questions. But for the purpose of this video, I will answer 3 of them. So the first question I want to answer is it true that Moloch accepted human sacrifice in the past? And is it true that it really happened? Or it is simply a Christian propaganda? Now, there is no short answer to this question. This is a really complex question, and in order to answer this question, we need to debunk a lot of misconceptions. So I will rather skip this question altogether. And what I will say is that Moloch is a fertility god and he can be extremely creative and extremely destructive. So it all depends on how we approach him, and you always need to approach spirits with a clear mind. Another question people asked is, can Molech be used in a lust spell? My advice is, don't use him in a lust spell. He is not a lust god. He is connected to sexuality, but not in a way of lust. So he cannot be used in lust spells. The third question I got is, can Moloch be a father figure? And can he be a role model for a male devotee? That's technically one of the ways he was worshipped and venerated in the past, especially by the kings. According to the really small amount of evidence we have. Technically speaking, as we speak about the existence of Molech, he exists as a figure in the Old Testament and in the Christian folklore and in Judaic folklore, and his word and title Moloch is technically similar to 2 Old Semitic words. One is Malik, which means the king, and one is Malk, which means the sacrifice. So, outside of the Old Testament and Christian folklore, we do not have a lot of direct Phoenician sources and Canaanite sources for the cult of Moloch. So technically speaking, talking about him and his role in the past is not thing we can do with confidence, because we do not have adequate ancient sources on this divinity from the original culture. We are observing this entity through the eyes of the cultures who didn't like that he exists and that he has some form of a following. And that should be taken into consideration when we approach this spirit or divinity. What we know from the original sources, or what we have as the sources, what we know from any sources we have, is only one thing, and that's the fact that he was somehow connected to the fire through ritual of sacrificing things into the fire. He was somehow connected to kingship, and he was also in some way connected to fertility specifically. So that's what we know. So from the sources we have on him, we can deduce that from the historical perspective he can be observed as a fertility god, and he can be observed as a god who brings wealth and power. If we observe wealth and power symbolically, then we can also interpret that to mean that he also brings spiritual knowledge. Everything else is simply our personal experience or educated guess. We simply do not have enough primary sources on Moloch to kinda be able to make educated historical guess. But return to the question. Can Moloch be a role model for males? The answer is, since males are fighting most of their lives to be more powerful in the society and to climb a social hierarchy, and Molech definitely, according to the primary sources we have, can bring those things. He can bring power and wealth. And to a degree, if we interpret sources a little bit freely, he can also bring spiritual knowledge. What we are having here is the God who can indeed be a role model for males. Now, another question asked to me in this question I asked my fans about what you want to know about Molech is, they asked, can Molech be used in league with some multiple other spirits to generate money? And my answer to this is simply, you need to experiment with that. In my experience, he can be used with any demonic spirits to manifest money. That's my experience. Also, certain aspects of Kabbalistic lore associate him closely with all of the Baal spirits as well as many other demons. But in reality, as I said, we do not have strong primary source evidence for the nature of the Moloch's cult. So I think that the question, can Moloch be used in league with other spirits, especially Belphegor, Bion, and other similar entities? In my experience, the answer is yes, but we need to kind of study more in order to find out the best combination for Molech. In my opinion, the best spirit to work alongside Moloch is some Saturnian entity, since in my experience, Moloch himself is extremely Saturnian. And the question I also got is Moloch good in bringing money? I already answered it. And I also got a really interesting question. What type of people Moloch likes? Now, this is the question I am really not competent to answer. If you asked this question, it probably means that you are interested in working with the spirit. And if you are interested in working with the spirit, I think the best thing you can do is to simply evoke him yourself and see, will it stick for you? Will you feel that that's the right spirit for you? Also, many people asked who should be and would be a female counterpart to Moloch. And the answer is, from the sources we have on him, we simply do not know. So if we want to pair female demon with any male demon, we could pair Moloch with one of the four empresses of the Qliphoth. But reality is that spirits such as Lilith are in different pieces of the lore presented as counterpart to many different spirits from the female side. So we simply do not have adequate sources to pair Moloch with some entity on the female side. But from my personal experience, the female entity which works the best with Moloch is Lilith in her Saturnian form, which I call Lilith Chronia, and also Aesir Zenuin works with Moloch pretty well. But that's my personal experience. That's not based on any ancient book, scripture, etc. So, for the end of this video, I need to give a short note to people who are planning to work with Molech or who want to work with Molech. And that's really a fact that he is really intense and he is not for everyone. But he is also not unapproachable. If you feel drawn to him, you should call him. And there is no reason why you shouldn't call him if you feel drawn to him, especially if you approach him respectfully, in a decent manner. And what I have to say is that Molech is kinda a deity in which you and with whom you have a lot of space for personal experience, because he is presented as a figure. He is presented as a being. He is presented as this ancient god. And in Hebrew lore, he definitely exists as independent entity, as independent spirit. And from the ancient text, we have clear evidence that he exists as a god, but reality is the reference to him in text is so vague that some modern scholars deny his existence. But from my personal experience, he exists, and he kind of represents that impulse of kingship, knowledge and wealth and power in a really dark Saturnian way, mixed with strong fertility elements, and he seems to be really revitalizing to his followers. I see him as an old fertility god. I see him as a agricultural god who brings wealth, power and knowledge to his devotees, and the perspective upon the hidden realms. What we can also deduce is that he is connected to the underworld, because gods connected with bulls are usually connected with the underworld. That's almost a universal thing, which really is present in every culture. If somebody is associated with the bull, he is associated with the underworld. You have that in Slavic mythology, in Norse mythology, in Greek mythology, in German mythology. Bulls mean underworld. So from that bull association, we can deduce that he is definitely the chthonic god. But in your work with Moloch, you have a lot of space for personal experience. And if you are able to summon the deity correctly, that deity is allowed to express itself to you in a unique way. And for the end of this video, I will give you methodology how to summon Moloch. So raise the sacred space and then vibrate the name of Moloch until you feel the shift in the room. Then you technically light the fire. It can be the candle or the campfire. And offer your blood or some other bodily fluids into the fire, dedicating it to Molech, to this ancient divinity. And in that moment, his presence will peak. His energy will kind of become stronger. And then you give him your request or what you want done. And build up your relationship from there. But in order for this to work, you kind of need to be able to raise the sacred space and be able to vibrate his name and call his name enough until you kind of feel a really strong presence. And that's what I am giving here. That's the method you can use. Since Moloch is relatively obscure and we don't have adequate methodologies from source material for summoning him, we should rather left work with Moloch for more advanced people, not because he is picky as much, but because we simply do not have a lot of sources on which to draw when we work with him, and that's my main concern here. I will continue to offer my personal gnosis regarding this deity. I kind of answered 4 or 5 questions you asked me about, guys, and I will probably answer more of them if you ask me more of them. And thanks for watching and see you next time. Peace out.